Hello, and welcome to Devlog 14. I've had a lot less time recently, but I did manage to get a couple important things done. The biggest news is that a couple days after the last devlog, we got our Steam page actually approved and live. That took a lot of work between the three of us of bouncing ideas back and forth, figuring out what we wanted to write and how we wanted to phrase it, and what points of the game we wanted to highlight, but it is live now. We've got a trailer on there, and a pretty good description, I think. So check it out if you haven't wishlisted the game yet. Wishlisting really helps us, appeases Steam's algorithm and gets us visibility and gets more people interested in the game. So there's a link attached in the video and in the description, so please check it out. In terms of actual gameplay features though, you'll see the first simplest one here, which is that there's a lot more information on the tactical view now for your individual ships. So the blue spheres have always shown what each ship's sensor range are, but now there's an additional red and a green sphere showing its offensive and defensive ranges respectively. Right now it might seem a little overwhelming because there's just so many lines overlapping with each other, but for the next sprint I plan to make it a lot more usable and useful by having it so that you see this much stuff when you have no ship selected, when you're just looking at the full fleet. But when you have a ship selected, it'll show you a range plane and then markers on that plane, similar to how Eve does it. Because let's face it, it's really hard to efficiently visualize and understand this information in 3D space. It's a lot easier and more intuitive to see it on a plane, and so these straight up and down sticks that you're seeing for where the ships are located are going to turn into arcs that go down onto that plane, and then everything can be translated into ranges on that plane, which I think should make it a lot more readable. I also finally got around to doing that teams rework that I was talking about. So now there are only 2 teams plus the spectator, and that allowed me to reorganize the spawn points on the map. So this is a 4-player map. Now there are 4 spawn points for Team 1 and 4 spawn points for Team 2 on opposite sides of the map, so that the players will always spawn together. The next thing you'll probably notice is that when these ships pop up, they're no longer just unknown. And the reason that the names show up immediately is because these are corvettes, they're really small, hard to detect. I didn't pick them up until they were in visual range, and once something's in visual range, it becomes fully identified. But you'll see as new things pop up, these unknown tracks are slowly going to be identified, whether that's missile, warship, then it will show you the class, and then eventually its actual type and then name from there over time. One significant flaw with the AI right now is that it's not really very good at prioritizing where to put torpedoes, so it just wasted like a dozen torpedoes on a frigate when those are really weapons that are meant for taking out the larger ships like the cruiser. But the point of the identification mechanics is that I really want to incentivize the battles to take place at a longer range, and I'm going to have to change some things around in order to do that, because right now a lot of stuff tends to end up in very close quarters. But with the gradual identification, what it lets you do is slowly figure out what the enemy is using, even if you're not in visual range of them. You can see that that unknown just turned to missile, so we know that that's a missile. You might also notice when I'm not being jammed, there's a couple contacts down there that say warship or destroyer. The identification speed is a little fast right now. I'm probably going to slow it down once I get a proper intel compartment in, so that the basic CIC will slowly unveil what the enemy contacts are, but the intel center will do it a lot faster. You may remember from the last devlog, the AI one, that I mentioned that the AI does really poorly when it's being jammed, because its worldview is completely based on what its sensors are telling it. Well, the AI now uses and reacts to jamming pretty well now that a long-needed feature has finally been implemented, which is visual targeting. So there's a destroyer and 2 frigates down there that I can see visually, but because of all the jamming I don't have radar tracks on them. But when I click on a ship, you'll see that there is a little eyeball icon and a contact number instead of a track number, and that means that the ship is capable of targeting that ship visually. Certain weapons, missiles can't be, but a lot of turrets can be, targeted by visual tracks. So this provides a really useful backup to your sensors when they're being jammed like this. When it comes to visual tracking, it gives you pretty accurate positional information, but the velocity information is really terrible. So if a target is not moving, you can score some pretty reliable hits, but if it is moving, your shots are probably going to be all over the place. And for usability's sake, and to minimize micro related to this, these tracks will be automatically promoted to sensor tracks when a sensor is able to pick them up. And if a sensor loses them and they still have visual contact with it, it'll be demoted to a visual track, but anything that's targeted on it won't have its targeting order dropped. When it comes to actually selecting a target now that there are 3 ways of targeting it, position, track, and visual, it was really time for the old system to go away, which was where you would, when you open the targeting menu, choose whether you wanted to select by position, track, or visual, even though visual didn't work back then. And I lost count of the number of times that I started issuing a targeting order, realized I had the wrong mode selected, and then had to go back and do it again. So what I've done now to improve that is that it's all completely context sensitive. In the weapon select list, you'll notice that the buttons at the top are gone and they've been replaced by gray and green text. And that shows you what mode you're using as an advisory thing, but you can't actually click on any of them. So when you right-click in space, you're automatically targeting by position. If you right-click a sensor track, you're automatically targeting by sensor track. And if you right-click a visual contact, you're automatically targeting in visual mode. And the point of this is that it gets rid of the, oops, I accidentally started a targeting order with the wrong mode, now I gotta go back and do it again, which was really frustrating, especially when you were trying to issue a bunch of orders really quickly. One of the things that made the visual targeting something that I really put off for a while was that in order for it to work, I had to move the visibility processing to be authoritative on the server instead of being done on each client, since previously it was just an aesthetic thing, like you can see the ships, that's cool, it's just something that looks nice. Now that it actually has a gameplay mechanic responsibility, it needed to move to the server so that you can't cheat. And finally, I did a much needed expansion of the compartment and module type components. This is something that's been bothering me for a long time. It's been bothering the testers. There was really only one way to lay out the interior of your ship, which was reactor, CIC, radar module, repair lockers, and magazines, and that's it. And there was nothing else that you could get in order to really diversify what the capabilities of the ships were on the inside, aside from, just what the weapons were. But now there's a bunch of new ones, including variants on the old modules, such as reinforced and Citadel CICs. There's larger repair lockers, reinforced repair lockers. There's gun plotting. There's plant control that gives you power bonuses, track correlation, gyros that increase your gun accuracy, and a couple others that make it a lot more interesting to actually fit out the interior of the ship rather than just selecting what your guns are going to be. In terms of what I didn't get to, I really wanted to make more progress on the intel side of things beyond just identifying the contacts, which I did get to. The problem was that I really wasn't sure how I wanted to display the information to the player. I didn't just want it to be you click on the ship and you see a status bar on an enemy ship the same way that you see for your ships. Right now, I think I may do a list of enemy ships on the right side of the screen, similar to how Nexus did it long ago. And then it'll show you, the number of intel spaces that you have functioning, what they think the status of the enemy ships are, and that information would slowly be revealed and be a little inaccurate. I might work on the rest of this intel stuff in the next sprint if I get time, but as I said, I have a lot less time than I used to have right now. So my priorities for the next sprint are going to be a couple quality of life features, things like were being discussed in the Discord, basically a pre-planned responses, allowing the player to construct sets of orders that can be issued all at once instead of having to issue 20 things on first contact like you have to do now. And the nice thing about that is that I built the order system to actually support this in the code, and so it actually should just be a question of making the UI work for it. I'm also going to make that range plane that I was talking about earlier in the video to make it a little easier to process what the ranges of things on the tactical view actually are, make it a little more intuitive. When it comes to the expanded list of modules and all their bonuses, there is a major issue with that right now. Let's take a look at the ammunition elevator, for example, which gives you a 10% bonus to reload speed on ballistic weapons. The issue is that if you put 5 of them on your ship, you get a 50% bonus to your reload speed. So I've got to make some kind of decaying multiplier so that the first one is like 10%, the second one is 5%, the third one is 2.5%, so that you can't just keep stacking these modules indefinitely. I also need to put a limit on certain unique modules, like you should only be able to have 1 CIC, you should only be able to have 1 auxiliary steering, so that you can't just fill your ship with command modules and then you're indestructible. That's the reason that the Nomad Giant in the video that you're watching now has been completely crippled for the entire game, but it hasn't been destroyed because I put a second CIC module in the tower and it just happened to not get hit this whole time. So that is the progress for the last couple weeks. Please remember to go to the Steam page, If you're interested in the game, wishlisting helps us out immensely, and if you want to chat with us and our growing community, please join our Discord. All the links for this stuff is in the description below, and thank you for watching.